Sometimes the brightest days hide the darkest secrets. Today, I'll tell you about a woman who learned to breathe after 10 years of silence, about her struggle to reclaim her own life, and the courage to be different from those who shaped her. I don't want to be like her, but what do we do when the echo of the past reverberates even in our smallest choices? Subscribe to my channel for more stories that touch your heart. Are you ready to begin? It was a rainy week, heavy with dampness and a weight I carried deep in my soul. We were preparing for my mother's funeral, and the sky seemed to weep with us. But on the day of the burial, the sun emerged, a beautiful autumn day, warm and golden, its rays piercing the clouds as if to gently caress the earth. Those present called it a sign, claiming my mother had been a good person and the sun had come to accompany her on her final journey. She was a good person, they whispered among themselves. Well, only I knew whether that was true. I knew life wasn't black and white, that everyone carries their own light and shadows. After the funeral, we shared kupa cake, as tradition demands, and headed home. Close relatives gathered at my place. We talked, sipped coffee or tea, laughed at memories, and fell silent when grief overwhelmed us. Nothing elaborate, nothing excessive. Just people sharing sorrow and offering support in quiet, simple ways. "You should have booked a restaurant meal," my aunt told me, her eyes brimming with curiosity rooted deep in tradition. "Why?" I asked, baffled. I'd never understood these customs. "To celebrate? Eat and drink to forget we just buried Mom?" She sighed as if I were a child refusing to learn a vital lesson. "It's not about forgetting," she said, her voice straining to sound patient. "It's about being together, showing we're a family that supports one another, a sign of respect. And it's what she would have wanted." I nodded, but unease lingered inside me. I couldn't see the logic. To me, respect and support didn't require restaurants or rituals meant more for others than ourselves. But I agreed. Sometimes it's easier to yield than to resist. I missed my father, a simple man who understood me and always offered wise advice. I remember that day like it was yesterday. Our little Daria was turning 3. A party filled with laughter, balloons, and cake until it shattered into nightmare. My father collapsed. Paralyzed with fear, I could only hold him and whisper, "I love you." The ambulance sirens, the hospital chaos, then the doctor's hollow voice crushing my heart into pieces. The pain was sharp, a wound that never healed. Days blurred into a joyless haze. Bob stayed by my side, silent yet steadfast, but nothing could fill the void my father left. I'd watch Daria, her eyes wide and bright, and wonder how to explain that her grandfather, the man who read her bedtime stories, taught her to ride a bike, was gone forever. After his death, my childhood home drowned in silence. My mother was devastated, but hid her pain behind reproaches. "If you'd had a proper wedding, maybe he'd have been happier and not died so young." "You never listened. Always did as you pleased." I never replied. Silence had become my shield against her bitterness. Sometimes I wanted to scream. For God's sake, I was married, building my own life, a home with yellow kitchen walls, a child laughing in the yard, Bob's smile as he held my hand. I wouldn't let anyone dictate my life. But life, it seems, has a way of forcing you to relive choices you thought you'd already made. Mom lived alone in their apartment after Dad's death. 4 rooms of memories, creaky floors, and balcony geraniums she watered despite hating their scent. After the funeral, she began her campaign. Sell the apartment, move in with you, use the money to renovate, modern kitchen, bigger living room. She spoke like she was planning a vacation, not an invasion. I refused, stubborn as a goat caught in a fence, until she deployed her heavy artillery. "Bob, don't you think this would be best?" And Bob, poor, blue-eyed Bob, forever the good son-in-law, nodded. "Darling, maybe she's right." I gave in. Not because she convinced me, but because I was exhausted by the daily battles. It was the worst mistake of my life. I see that now, too late. Renovations took 6 months. 6 months of Mom overseeing every tile, every paint stroke like a general. "Narrow cabinets here, save space. Those drapes look cheap." Bob shrugged. "Let her be." But when she moved in, I understood it wasn't about cabinets, it was control. Criticizing how I sliced tomatoes, my evening dress, questioning every expense. "Where are you going so late? Why don't you feed Daria more vegetables? Bob, don't you wish she cooked better?" One day, I found her rifling through our bedroom drawers. "Mom, those are private," I snapped, trembling. She turned with a patronizing smile. "I just wanted to help. You're so messy." Bob tried to mediate, but I felt like a stranger in my own home. Our house had become a stage where I played the ungrateful daughter, and she directed every scene. At night, I'd hear her footsteps, light yet loud enough to remind me there was no more me. I existed only as her shadow. Now, looking back, I realize I sold more than an apartment. I sold my peace, my privacy, my voice. And the worst part? Even that money didn't last. It melted into Italian tiles and custom cabinets, ornate flower beds, manicured hedges, and countless things Mom boasted she'd bought. But my tears, those remained. I keep them in a drawer I lock away just for me. 10 years. 10 heavy years of living another woman's life. I lived by her rules, her desires, her dreams, until today, standing before her grave, dry-eyed. Months after deciding to clear out her room, I found a letter tucked beneath her clothes. The letter was old, its edges frayed and paper yellowed, as if its fibers held the echo of a lost time. I unfolded it with trembling hands, breathing in the faded scent of lavender mingling with dust. "My dear," it began, "I know I sometimes made you feel invaded, but everything I did was out of love. Maybe my love was too harsh, too suffocating, but I only wanted what was best for you. Please don't hate me." The words spilled like broken beads, confessing without truly confessing. A knot tightened in my throat, anger and pity tangled together. Had all of it in her mind been acts of love? Bob walked in, carrying 2 teacups. He saw the letter and nodded silently, sitting beside me. "We'll make it," he whispered, touching my shoulder. I nodded, but I knew the road ahead would be long. In the weeks that followed, I dismantled the past piece by piece. Her heavy mahogany cabinets were replaced with simple, lightwood shelves. The thick, gold-tasseled drapes were donated to a church. In their place, I chose sheer curtains that let sunlight dance on the walls. The yard, where Mom had planted rigid roses like soldiers on parade, became a riot of colors. Peonies, daffodils, tulips, and lavender tangled in a wild dance. Daria dug a small trench by the fence, planting sunflower seeds. "They'll grow up to the sky!" she exclaimed, her face smudged with dirt. I laughed, but a quiet fear prickled. Will I know how to be different? One evening, as Daria slept and Bob read on the terrace, I stood alone in the kitchen. I remembered Mom correcting how I chopped onions too thick or left dishes unwashed. Now I sliced vegetables to music, leaving cups on the table until morning. When Daria asked for a dog, I said yes without hesitation. Mom would have called it unnecessary noise. We named him Caesar, and now he races through the tall grass with Daria, Bob watching with a grin. Sometimes, passing the hallway mirror, I see her shadow in my reflection. I clench my fists, breathe deeply, and remind myself, I chose to be different. Love shouldn't suffocate, it should embrace. And when Daria asks if I like her pink frilly dress, I smile. It's perfect. Just like you. I say it without corrections, without critiques. Maybe that's what motherhood means, making space for their life to bloom, even if not in your own way. Tonight, as I turn off the lights, her whispers from the past fade beneath Daria's laughter. The wounds won't heal overnight, but every flower in the yard is a promise. Life can be rebuilt. And so, among discarded drapes and dismantled cabinets, I learned freedom isn't just empty space, it's a place filled with small, brave choices. What about you? Have you ever felt the need to repair your ties to the past? Leave a comment below with a why yes or tell me if you have a memory that transformed you. Sometimes the smallest confessions bring us closer than we think. If this journey of liberation resonated with you, hit like to help us reach 100 hearts and share with someone who needs to hear that change is possible. Who knows, your story might be next. Until then, remember, even the tiniest flower reminds us we can bloom, even on parched earth.